My name is Sabir Aleem, and I'm the host of The Wise View. The Wise View is a show that addresses community concerns. Those concerns are addressed by a group of men. Men who are actively involved in their community. Men who are seeking to bring about change within the community. Men who have no fear whatsoever of confronting those issues, because we know that if we don't make changes right now, that our communities will continue to deteriorate. Most importantly, you need to understand this. This show is straight from the hip, raw, uncut, no barriers, no restrictions. That which you will find in many other shows. But we're going to tell it like it is right here. And not only are we going to talk about those concerns, we're going to provide solutions. So see, me and my crew, we make it do what it do. Join us for The Wise View. Let's go. One of the things that I had talked about, and I believe I spoke about it in one of the previous episodes of The Wise View. I think I spoke about it when I did the piece on the alleged Willie Lynch speech. One of the things I talked about was during Ramadan. I had pretty much turned the corner after having kind of teetered back and forth in what direction I was going in internally. So I did a lot of self-assessment, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of self-evaluating, and made a lot of changes. And I made a lot of those changes as well in terms of social media and what it is that I have chosen to post in regards to information on my website, on my Facebook page, on my Facebook resource page, my Twitter, my LinkedIn accounts. There are a lot of things that I didn't know about civil rights, about Afrocentrics. There are still some things that I am learning about my own culture, my own history as a black man. There are a lot of things that I was not taught. And we can make all the assumptions in the world that people know certain things, and people can perpetrate that they know all these things. But when you call them to the carpet, their defenses kick in and they begin to be offensive with comments coming out of their mouth because they have an inability to articulate the things that they profess to know. I'm one who spends a lot of time in learning, and I've been involved in more learnings of late in regards to protests on both levels, peaceful protests, violent protests, what it means to protest. And you know, there are guidelines to everything that we have to do in order to get our needs met, in order to bring to the attention of others those things that we are having forced upon us as a people. And this has happened throughout the years, and I've just watched, you know, from the 1800s, the 1900s, from the 1940s, the 50s, 60s, and on up to today, how things have been somewhat projected as being changed, but have only metamorphosized in another capacity. That's all. They have been more modernized in terms of how they are put upon us as a people. That's all. And you've heard this before, and I'm saying it again, we're still fighting for jobs. We're still fighting for economic growth and development. We're still fighting for the very same thing today that we were fighting for in 1865. The same things. The same things. Because I can sit at a counter with others, because I can drink from water fountains with others, because I'm able to do certain things. You know, it's been like, it's funny because we have been duped to believe in so many capacities that the world we live in has changed, and it hasn't. It hasn't. And I've said this in my my trailer when I was promoting my book, Code Black, that we've always had others who have stepped in and tried to be a part of our protests, tried to be a part of, you know, helping our causes. There's always been that. It's always been that way. So this is nothing new. It's nothing new to see whites, Asians, Catholics, Jews, and now we have the from coming out of the temple, the Buddhists coming out in support of this whole Ferguson thing. We have Great Britain. We have all these people who are coming forth, and these people have never hidden in shadows in terms of support. As much as we want to say, well, they should be more vocal with it, we have to also understand the reason for why they're not as vocal. So I reposted something on Facebook because it hit home for me. And I mean, when I say it hit home so hard that it went right past the nerves and to the bone. And I don't know if you've ever had a knife or anything that cut right to the bone. But as a chef, I've cut my finger, and I cut my finger right to the bone, and it just kind of bypassed everything. And when something is cut to the bone, it goes right to the central nervous system. It's like everything just kind of gets discombobulated within, and you feel that pain. Well, this was posted. I'm going to read it to you. People act different towards you around certain people because they talk different about you to certain people. And it really stood out for me because of things that I have seen in people's characteristics. People, you know, who I've broken bread with. People who, you know, I've traveled in the circle with them, and they've traveled within mine, and we, you know, we approach common causes and the like. And I was just really taken aback by the posting because I had some things in my mind, in my heart, about, you know, some brothers who, you know, I admire. And I just had the conversation the same morning this was posted. The same morning I had this conversation was the same day that this posting came up. And I had to respond to it, and I had to repost it, and I had to put a statement with it. So I want to read you that statement. There are not many things that I repost, especially if I find them trivial. But this is so on point, and I capitalized on point with 3 exclamation marks followed. I just had this discussion this morning with someone regarding my feelings toward a couple of brothers who I know travel in the same circle, who showed a different behavior toward me when we were all in the same venue together. These are men who I am referring to. Our divide as a people runs so deep, and it has nothing to do with anything other than pure, unadulterated immaturity. At the end of the day, these jokers you run behind like little puppies, begging for their crumbs, talk about you in the same way. I can only say, wow, pray for you, and keep it moving. I can count my friends on one hand. When we talk about healing, when we talk about rebuilding, when we talk about coming back to the table and trying to move forward, there's a lot of work that has to be done before we can even get to that capacity. A lot of work. But the first step in the work that we have to do is we have to look at ourselves. And we have to ask ourselves, how real are we being about who we are? We're not even going to have it. We're not even going to have a discussion today about whose we are. But who we are. We're so preoccupied with having to sit in the so-called good graces of certain individuals, so-called prominent individuals, so-called movers and shakers. We're so preoccupied in so many ways in trying to be in their good graces. And they're doing the exact same thing, trying to be in the good graces of somebody else. But none of you are in my mission statement. None of you are in my vision statement. Therefore, I don't have to run behind you and beg you for your crumbs. But you obviously don't see that. You obviously don't see that at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, when that administration goes out, so do you. But since I have been in existence as a non-profit organization, I've extended my hand to every organization to come and participate, regardless of whether you provide the same services or not. Doesn't matter. The job is much too large for one organization to take on by itself. And it's quite selfish of us to sit back and establish a waiting list when we know that the non-profit down the street is suffering. It's suffering. And in need of people to provide services to as well. And you rather have people sitting on a waiting list for months at a time. For months at a time. That's not, no, you can say whatever it is that you want to say, well, that's business, that's what business is about. No, we have to help each other survive. Because when we stop collaborating, it's over. And it's been over for a lot of nonprofit organizations. Your funding is about to run out. Where is the money coming from? From the government? Is that where it's coming from? What money? What money? So you're right back in the same line that I'm in, the one you got out of and went chasing behind somebody else so you can get money from them, and they toss you a few crumbs, and now you think, oh, we cool. No, you're not. You still don't get it. You still don't get it. So since 2007, I have been operating, this is 2014, mind you, I have been operating without any funding, continuing to stay with my mission and my vision statement. Continue to stay with those things. I haven't changed. I haven't wavered from that. And again, I've always invited collaboration. Always. Here's the question. How many of you have invited me to collaborate with what it is that you're doing? Now, if I've said something to offend you, or I've said something to hurt your feelings, I don't know anything about it. Maybe it's the fact that I'm more assertive at addressing the issue. Maybe it's the mere fact that I don't feel the need to sit down and talk the same soft talk that you choose to use when you sit around other people, because you don't want those other people to see you in a different light. Well, what light do you think they see you in? When you're running behind them like little puppies with your hand out, asking for them to toss you some of their crumbs. How do you think they see you? Think about it. I had a brother, in all his goodness, attempt to defend conduct of others by saying how what I perceive he hopes was just familiarity with one another. Because I had explained to him how I attended several meetings and several functions where these individuals were in attendance. And when I would come into the meetings, I would get like blown off. I've had people come in who are in so-called prominent positions in the city of Philadelphia who will extend their hand right across me to shake the hand of someone standing right next to me. Hey, how you doing? And not even acknowledge me. And it's not just me. This happens to many of us. I've stood on a platform supporting an event that an organization gave the president of that organization came up to the plaza, walked around me, shook the hand of several people around me, bypassed about 4 of us, spoke to everybody who he chose to speak to, and never acknowledged me and a couple other people standing there. That is the environment that is created in many of these so-called venues that are about causes. And this was a non-violent event, right, that I came to support somebody else in, their organization. And you represent an organization that is supposed to be one that benefits blacks. But yet you can't even acknowledge every person standing there. How do you represent me? You don't represent me. You can't represent me. You don't even know me. You don't even acknowledge me. And I'm not, and listen, you can sit back all day long and say, well, Sabir, maybe that's your own arrogance. Maybe that's your stuff. No, maybe I'm telling the damn truth. And you need to stop sitting back co-signing folks' stuff when you know that that's what folks do. They've done it to you. They do it to you. And you allow them to continue to do it. And you don't want to confront it. Because that's what it comes down to. I don't need to be a part of the good old boys club. And again, you probably can say something to the nature of, well, Sabir, you know, listen, you can't dance by yourself. You got to dance with somebody, even if it's one person. I do. I've come to learn that there's only one that I'm going to dance with, and that's God. Because in the end, I'm held accountable for what I do or don't do. I'm not held accountable for friendships that were made. I'm held accountable for how I treat people. That's what I'm held accountable for. That's what I'm held accountable for. I'm not held accountable for being your friend. I'm not held accountable for running behind you like some little puppy and asking you to give me some crumbs to help, you know, my organization, you know, prosper. And when God says it's going to happen, it'll happen. Period. There's nothing that you can do to change that. Nothing. So I keep doing the work because I work for Him. And again, I'm no holy roller. I'm not professing to be holier than thou. All I'm saying is that what I have learned in the 53, almost 54 years of my life is that I will no longer put myself in a position where I won't speak up. See, had I spoken up some years ago, I may even have had a better shot at healing the relationship between me and my daughter Rose. Had I opened my mouth and had I said some things that needed to be said. Maybe if she had heard some truths come out beforehand. Maybe if she had seen more assertion out of me, a more aggressive approach, you know, out of me in addressing what was happening in our relationship. Maybe we'd have a better relationship today. And I pray to God that at some point in time that does change. And that's all I can do at this point is pray that change. Because today I'm available. I can't make people be or do anything. I've surrendered to that years ago. But when we look at why our youth are the way they are, look at us. Look at us. The so-called senior members of the village. The wise men of the village. Look at us. Look at our condition. Look at our cowardiceness. Look at our callousness. Look at our uncaringness. Instead of being our brother's keeper, we're being our brother keeping down. You're not keeping your brother. We're not all eating together. If I eat, you should eat. And I've always put a call out to everybody who wanted to be a part of any venue. I paid for it. It came out of my pocket. I didn't have funding when I gave these events. I didn't have any funding. It came out of my pocket. You weren't asked to pay for anything. You were asked to show up and be able to put your craft on the podium and let everybody know what you do. I don't get invitations, but it's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm just not okay with the fact that we don't see the damage that we're causing to the entire community by not including others in anything unless they're part of our clique. Unless they're part of our clique. That's wrong. That's wrong. And as a result of that, all of our people are suffering. We provided nothing for returning our brothers returning home from prison. Nothing. They're coming home to nothing but conversation. The same conversation that they left when they went upstate. They're coming home to the same conversation. You still talking about what you're going to do. There's nothing for our youth. Nothing. No recreation centers. Hell, Joe Frazier's gym is a damn value store. You tell me why such a historic place, right, that represented so much for so many years is a value store. That should be a place where our young folks be going in there and resolving their conflicts. When I grew up, our community center, we held fights in order to bring some resolve to the gang conflicts. There was no boxing ring. There were some 8-ounce gloves, maybe 10-ounce, and there was some adult men, some old heads in there who said, okay, who wants who? And that's how it was handled. We don't even have community centers that operate in that capacity anymore, in any capacity anymore. How much does it take to put up a boxing ring and stop the violence? Let's stop the violence. How much does it take? How much does it take to have a weekly meeting and allow our young folks to sit down and vent and talk about their stuff? How much time does it take? Oh, ain't nobody paying us. You know, we don't have any money to do that. So, you know, we don't have that kind of funding. Our funding, your funding. Funding? You need to be funded to help your brothers and sisters? And you don't see anything wrong with that picture. Anything. Come on. Really? And you want to sit there and you want to watch this video and you want to bash me about what I'm saying? Oh, it's not a judgment call. It's a very clear, factual observation of conduct in the black community. In the 60s, we were marching for jobs, equality, justice. In 2014, we're doing the same thing. In the 60s, we had fewer black politicians, but there were more opportunities for things that were happening. There were a lot of things that were eradicated during those periods, right? I remember growing up as a child having community centers that had free camps, that had pools that were open, basketball courts that were maintained. There were other activities within the community centers. Mentoring when I was coming up was Mr. Carl coming over, knowing that my mother was raising myself and my sister on her own. Mr. Carl coming over and going in his pocket and taking me to Atco Speedway, taking me over to Mosconi's pool hall and teaching me how to shoot pool, sitting me out there with him in the summer while he buffed his car, while he performed maintenance on his car, and teaching me those things. That was mentoring. That was mentoring. It was my Uncle Frank who came and took me with him and his family to live with them for a year or 2 years at a time. It was my grandparents who took me in to live with them for a year or 2 years to give my mother some help. Because we all need help. And when any of us are struggling, be it a single mother, be it a single father, family should be stepping in and helping. Community members should be stepping in and helping. So we didn't need to go through no mentoring program. We didn't need mentoring certificates. We didn't need somebody to have, we didn't need to have non-profit status in order to go out and help somebody. We didn't need that status. We helped. I got help. And I help others. That was a gimme. I was just reading a press release from a faith, what's labeled as being faith leaders, who want to establish a Michael Brown Foundation. And the first thing on the top of the list in establishing this was to establish a foundation where monies would go into this foundation, and for not just Mike Brown, but for others who have been subjected to the very same injustices and murderous actions as others. But what happened to the days of just going into your pocket? And if you stay in contact with the Brown family and say, Brown family, what's going on? How you making out? Or the Trayvon Martin family, Mr. and Mrs. Martin, how you doing? You need anything? Can we help? What happened to those days? That's what faith is established in, as far as I'm concerned, because when I was growing up, that's what it was about. It was about that fellowship. It was about that fellowship stepping in and helping out. You didn't need to be some LLC. You didn't need to be some non-profit. You didn't need to be part of some organization to come in and help. It was called help. I didn't grow up in an environment where that I was taught about Afrocentrism. I grew up in an environment where I was taught black power. And black power didn't mean ostracizing any other group of people. It meant standing up. Standing up for my rights. It meant recognizing that my blackness was not, in fact, a detriment. That it was an asset. Right? And what did it mean to be an asset? It meant that I can make a difference. It meant that I can pull my brother and my sister up. Right? It meant that I needed to make sure that nobody was treading on me. It meant that I should be afforded the same opportunity as the next person. And opportunity, I think, is part of our confusion, because we keep looking at opportunity as having to be a part of another group's success. I don't have to be a part of another group's success. Success is within me. It's within me. So if I take personal responsibility to pursue my hopes, dreams, and aspirations, if that means within the black community or outside of the black community, the community as a whole should benefit from whatever it is I do positive. No matter where it is that I go. I'm not slinging drugs. I'm not beating on my wife. I'm not abusing my children. I'm playing my role as a human being in helping others. That should be sufficient. That should be sufficient. We keep riding on what it is that we want from others so that we can feel good about who we are. Well, you need to feel good about yourself first. I feel good about who I am. I've been subjected to hatred by whites. I don't hate whites. I've been subjected to hate by blacks. I don't hate blacks. I hate injustice. I hate wrongdoings upon another person. That's what I hate. So I don't do that upon other people. I don't impose hatred. I don't invoke hatred upon other people. I don't do that. I don't do that. I don't use the excuse because I'm black I haven't achieved. I kept my own self from achieving by the path that I took. The path that I took. I chose the pathway of defiance and resistance of what others were trying to instill within me, beginning with my mother, beginning with my grandmother, my grandfather, my Uncle Frank, Mr. Carl, and those others who stepped in to provide me with some level of guidance. I chose to go in the other direction. Those are choices I made, and absolutely I'm in agreement with environmentally that affects us too. So yes, I did do some things. Yes, I did get involved in things that I had no business getting involved in, but those were choices that I made. I had the option to go this way or to go that way. For whatever reason, I chose to go that way. And whether I went the way that others went in terms of committing murder and other heinous crimes upon others, or whether I went the route of having a speakeasy, meaning, you know, selling drugs, selling loose cigarettes, selling drinks, whatever it was, you know, criminality is criminality. So let's not make one's greater than the other. Wrong is wrong. Period. So when we start looking at black leadership, we start looking at black leaders, what does that mean? See, a group of people made a decision many years ago as to what I should be referred to on an application, on any kind of forms. Another group made that decision for me, that I should be referred to as a Negro. I wasn't part of that vote. Were you? Therefore, that is what we were supposed to be referred to by non-blacks. We are Negroes. So this is what goes on the application. Yet they didn't change their name, but they changed what we should be titled as being. I refer to myself as a black man. There are people who have problems with that because they think that I should call myself an African American. Why? Because that's what you think? There are people who have problems with the term nigger. They say that, you know, well, it's a racist term used by whites. But when we refer to ourselves as niggers, then we get termed as being ignorant, because that's a term that, you know, that you shouldn't accept. That's a term that you shouldn't use. That's a term that you shouldn't allow others to direct towards you, because that's a very negative, racist, prejudicial statement being used towards you as a person. Yet, there's another side that says, well, the word nigger was a mispronunciation by Europeans of the people of Niger. They looked at the map, they saw N-I-G-E-R, and the reference was nigger. That's a mispronunciation. So we go back and forth as to how, when, and what to use, but yet we don't see the bigger picture here, and the bigger picture here is the divide. The bigger picture here is the divide. The bigger picture here is the ongoing confusion that we have amongst ourselves. That we have amongst ourselves. The even greater debate is within religion. It's within religion. The whole divide up within Christianity, the divide within Islam, the divide within Catholicism, the divide within Judaism, the constant divide. The constant divide. Jews don't like Muslims, Muslims don't like Christians, all this rhetoric that we continue to fall prey to. But the bottom line on it is that if you're if you're following whatever your religious practices are, that's not even something you should be doing. At the end of the day, we all will wind up in the same line of unemployment, the same line of need from the government, the same line to go and give respect to the body that's either in a casket or wrapped in a shroud, however it is. We all wind up in that same line. We all wind up in the same dirt. Whether you're wrapped in a shroud or whether you're in some expensive casket, we all end up in the same dirt. We all end up standing before the same God. You get the same thing I get, especially if you're not in that 2%. And there's some rules in staying in that 2% as well. So at the end of the day, what's the difference? What's really the difference? The difference exists within your mind. See, you can't define for me or the next person, but specifically, you can't define for me who I should see as a black leader. You can't tell me that that's my leader. You can't make me believe that's my leader. You can't make that be my leader. You can't even stand before me and tell me you're my leader. What makes you my leader? Really, what makes you my leader? My father was my black leader. My Uncle Frank was my black leader. Mr. Carl was my black leader. My Uncle John's my black leader. My Uncle Ray, my black leader. And so on and so forth. Those are my black leaders. So you tell me how it is that those outside of who I define as being a black leader become a black leader for me and makes decisions for me. Tell me how that happens. You can't. So these self-professed black leaders who are running around making the decisions for black people as a whole, right, are wrong for jumping up on that podium, jumping up on that hill to make themselves believe that they represent all black people. And for any black person who does not succumb to that which they have established under their so-called black leadership, right, and you begin to ostracize them because they don't adhere to that, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. I've been asked a question on many occasions as to what my thoughts are regarding the ongoing disunity amongst blacks. My response has always been, I can't speak for why we, as a people, fail to unify. But here's what I can say. In addition to that, from my perspective, when you have a people who are confused within themselves about who they are, they cannot pass on to anyone else who they are. Therefore, the ongoing confusion about who we are as a person is the greatest difficulty, the greatest barrier to forward progress. Period. I say I'm a black man, you tell me I'm African American. If I say I don't agree, then I'm wrong. Then you want to go into a history of Africa, where man evolved from, and so on and so forth. Why do we need to have that discussion? And even if we do have that discussion, why can't it just be dialogue that you're having with your brother or sister instead of another means of divide? Why can't it just be discussion? Why does it have to be force-fed that that's who I am, that's where I come from? No, I come from God, first and foremost. I am in existence because He says be. Because He says it happens. Because He brings me into existence. So let's be real about that. But again, that's another one of those areas of divide. Because you want to go into this whole intellectual spill about where I came from, where man began and all this other stuff. Man began because God said it be so. That's where it began. So let's keep this real basic. Let's keep this real simple. Right? Let's keep this real simple. That's where my existence comes from. Okay? So let's stop all the other extra stuff. Let's stop all the research. Let's stop all, these numbers over here, and this is what this says in this book, and this is what you've learned. Because what I've learned is this, that nothing exists unless God says it exists. So we can stop right there and having any further discussion on should I be African American, should I be Indian American, should I be this, that. No, let's stop all that conversation right now. But when you have a people who are confused about their own existence, because we keep going back and forth, and we keep being ostracized by one another because we don't share the same sentiments, because I don't fall into that teaching. When we get past all of that, then we can begin to move forward. Then we can begin to move forward. Now, if you want to establish from what a black leader is, well, then you have to ask yourself, what are you looking for Because as an American, right, and I'm an American, so let's not get that twisted. I'm an American. But as an American, right, we look towards presidents, senators, and all those other political people as leadership, leading us to where it is that we want to be as a people, as a community. Or do we? See, because if you have an understanding of politics, politics represents itself. It represents itself. So when we keep looking at political leaders to do for us as a people, we've already failed in our thinking and our understanding. Because that has not happened. We have many of the same conditions today in 2014 that we had in the 50s, the 60s, and so on and so forth. Same conditions. Nothing has improved. With increased black leadership, so-called, in the political forum. Nothing has really improved for us in the black community with those individuals. When you talk about a black leader, what are you talking about in terms of the word black leader? For me, a black leader is Minister Farrakhan. That is a black leader. That is an individual who stands before the black people, right, in an effort to help them rise up in their thinking about what they need to do for themselves in order to achieve economic development, for self, employment, for self, and pulling up their brothers and sisters from up out of the pits of hell that many live in these poor and impoverished communities. Doing for self, self-empowerment. Self-empowerment. That is a black leader. It's not about the Muslim community. It's not about the Christian community. It's not about Jewish community. It's about blacks pulling themselves up out of these conditions. Period. But the first thing that people do who are, well, let me say this. The first thing that people do is make a decision based on doctrine, on what the nation believes. That's the first thing they do. What they think the nation believes. What they think of what comes from Minister Farrakhan in terms of dialogue. But the bottom line on it is this. I didn't agree with everything my mother said. I didn't agree with everything my father said. Uncle Frank, Uncle John, Uncle Ray, Mr. Carl, even you. But I don't have to agree with everything you say. I just have to believe this, that you have the best interests of me and the black community at heart. That has been proven. That has been proven. Look at how many black men, specifically black men, are off the corners selling drugs and alcohol and are on the corner preaching the gospel. If you want to really put it out that way, because that's what it is. A message of hope, a message of faith, a message of freedom. Period. Who else is doing that? Who else is doing that? Who? I know, I hear the crickets too. Because nobody else is doing that. Nobody else is doing that. Period. So you need to ask yourself, why are you not supporting that mission? Period. Why are you not supporting that mission? Why are you not establishing a like blueprint for what the Nation of Islam has established in terms of moving towards economic development and self-sufficiency. Why have you not done that? Why has there been no collaboration? Why is it we begin to and then fall back to trying to do it ourselves, trying to take credit for it? It's not a matter of credit. It's not a matter of credit. We keep looking to get credit for stuff. You get credit in the end. You get credit in the end. It's time to work now. So for me, that's a black leader. That's a person who puts their life on the line every day. He puts his life on the line every day. And no, I'm not a member of the nation. That doesn't mean I don't look at Minister Farrakhan as a leader, as a black leader. You don't have to be a member. You vote for a particular party because that's that party. You vote for you vote all Democrat, and you don't even, and most of us don't even know half of the people on there. We just see their faces on TV and vote for them. Yeah, he's a Democrat, vote for him. They're all politicians, but you'll vote all Democrat. And those, how many of those Democrats have helped the black community? Think about it. But you'll go that route. Or for those of you who go Republican, you go Republican. You vote all Republicans simply because somebody said that this is the party we're supporting. Instead of looking at the candidates and for what the candidates represent. And how in fact they have made changes and how in fact they can help the black community. But we go that route quickly. It's our thinking, man. It's our confusion. It's that ongoing confusion. There's ongoing confusion. We have all these religious institutions that continue to grow up, blow up, show up every day. But what change has happened within the community? The very community that these institutions exist in. What have they done to better the community? That becomes the question. When you start talking about leaders and when you start talking about leadership, it's based on one's own thinking. It's based on what it is that they want to have. For many of our youth, gang leaders have become black leaders for them. So if you want to understand what's happening with our youth, you have to look again at the so-called black leadership, as so-called black leaders. And I'll take it to another level here, whereas if you can't be a leader within your own home, which is where it begins, then where do you think your child, our children, are going to seek leadership at other than in the street? They're going to go in the street and look for leaders because you're not even leading your own household. And you don't want to accept that because that's the first part of the problem. And you can lead you can lead the household whether you live in that household or not. Your child can live with the mother, the father in a different country, and you can still be perceived as a black leader to your child. But if all you do is talk, because many of us run our mouths all the time about what the world should look like, what politics should be, this, that, and the other, and don't even do anything. Go to work every day and come home and sit at the bar, sit in your house with your legs crossed, with your remote in your hand, and talk crap. Talk about a whole lot of things, and you don't even volunteer to sweep the block on Saturdays when there's Saturday cleanup. Nothing. And there's many who do that. You make no contribution whatsoever. None. But you have a whole lot to say. You have a whole lot to say. But you won't volunteer to get a broom and go sweep off the basketball court. We wanted to play basketball when I was coming up and the courts were dirty. We get the broom from in the rec center. Go inside to the maintenance closet, get the brooms, and sweep everything ourselves. If it was filthy, we get it out there ourselves and we clean it all up ourselves because we wanted to sit on those bleachers, because we wanted to play on the clean court, because we were concerned about somebody falling on that broken bottle, on on some dog crap that somebody let the dog put on the court or in the grassy area. We did those things ourselves. We didn't wait for somebody else to come in on that day, for maintenance to come in that day to do it. We did it ourselves. Those are black leaders that I look towards. Those are the people who taught me those kind of values of life. You don't have to wait for somebody. You don't walk around the house and see a piece of paper laying in the middle of the stairwell and you walk over the stairwell because you think that mom or dad or somebody else should pick it up other than you. Or because you didn't put it there. I didn't grow up that way. I didn't grow up that way. We didn't have a problem doing those kind of things. But when we look at how our youth are being led today, we keep pointing fingers and saying it's them, it's them, it's them, it's them, it's them. We need to listen to them and hear what it is that they're saying. But from my own lens, I see it. I see it. I see how children are talked to. And my mother was, trust me, my mother was brutal with her mouth. But my mother instilled values and etiquettes that are so absent with our youth today because it's not being given to them in the home. It's not being given to them in the home. So when they enter into school or other public venues and they act like total fools, why do you chastise them? You haven't given that to them. You haven't given that to them. We knew not to go out in the street and cut up. We knew not to be out in the store and start throwing tantrums and what? Man, listen, I get it right there. Listen, I got my behind whooped in school by my mother, in class, in front of my peers. She came with belt in hand, right in front of my peers, whooped my behind, caught me in action all the time. All the time. All the time. Now, the system want to tell you that that's abuse. But then in the same breath, we have a mayor who will stand on camera and tell you that if you don't get your kids, that not only are we going to lock your kids up, we're going to lock you up too. You need to get control of your kids. Well, abuse has to be established. A belt? That's not abuse. That's not abuse. When you start using a buckle, that's abuse. You want to lock me up for dropping my son to his knees for being disrespectful to me or his mother? I'll take that L. But that's what the whole point is. The whole point is to lock me up because I took the initiative to handle my business with my child, as you put it. So you're speaking with a forked tongue. On one half, you tell them you're going to lock me up if my child is out there doing this wreaking havoc and these flash mobs and things that will happen. You want to tell me that you're going to lock me up and my child. And in the same side of your mouth, you want to tell me that you're going to lock me up if you deem what I'm doing and whooping my child behind is being abusive. You're going to lock me up. You deem it being abuse because I whooped their behind because they was out partaking in a flash mob activity. You represent the very same systems. And it doesn't make any sense what it is that you're saying. It makes no sense what you're saying. You have a family court system that does the same exact thing. The system is another part of our problem. Is another part of our problem. But nobody wants to address any of that. So all these people that you keep voting for, all these people that you keep putting into office, they haven't changed anything about any of those systems. Any of those systems. And ask those black politicians that are in office. Ask them how many of them grew up without their father. Ask them how many of them were racially profiled. Ask them how many of them saw the community centers in the very communities that they lived in or still lived in closed up. Ask them what they've done about those schools that they knew were closing 10 years ago. Ask them what they've done about it. Ask them. Ask them. Ask them. Put them on blast. In public. We keep going behind closed doors, talking to these politicians, and say, yo, man, why you know, what's up with it? No. On public ground. In front of the camera. Explain to me how nearly 40 schools in the city of Philadelphia closed. Explain to me why all the while y'all knew this was happening, that financially these schools, the school system was strapped, and that we were heading towards disaster. Ask them to explain that. Ask them to explain why it's only a certain amount of pools open. Ask them to explain these things that are happening in your community, that they're responsible for. Ask them. Publicly ask them. Publicly ask them. Because I guarantee you, the cameras won't stop rolling. Cameras won't stop rolling. When you throw that question in, cameras will not stop rolling. All these politicians jumping up in front of the camera, got all these great, wonderful things to say. Question them on those things that have failed, that continue to fail, and see what kind of response you get. Yeah. Ask that question. And again, once again, this is the so-called leadership you and I, because I've been guilty of it, vote for. And you know, it's really pathetic how I keep hearing us talk about people who have died for our right to vote as a people, and continue to tell me that I need to vote because people have died. People have died for many reasons. For us to have certain rights, liberties, and privileges today. And look at how we still conduct ourselves as a people. You don't talk about that. You don't talk about, in Martin's speech, how he talks about unity. You don't talk about how Marcus Garvey talked about the same thing, about the need for us to unify and do these things. You don't talk about Malcolm's speech and him saying the same thing about unity. You don't talk about none of that. How people have died for that. People put their lives on the line with that kind of dialogue. You don't talk about that. That's cowardice. That's what it's called. It's called cowardice. You have a fear of man, when you should merely have a fear of God. So where's the leadership? If you're not willing to put your life on the line, if you're not willing to put your brand on the line, if you're not willing to put your elected official status on line, what difference does it make? You put those things online for trivial things. Money, prestige, perceived power for yourself. But you don't put those things on the line to benefit your people. And Marion Barry said it best when he was here in Philadelphia, when Minister Farrakhan was here in Philadelphia, who gave much praise and respect to Marion Barry. When Marion Barry came up to the podium, he said very specifically, when black people have the power, and he was talking about political power, any kind of power, you have to use that power to help our people. Where is it at? Where are we being helped as a people? Think about it. Where's the black business district in Philadelphia? Where's the building in Center City? Where is it? That has been established by blacks. They're the black banks. Oh, come on, don't you even throw that name around. That's a joke. Because if you still adhere to the standard banking practices of all other banks, then you in fact are not helping your people. You're not. There are too many athletes, actors, and others who have the money, who could have established by now black bank and lending institution to better aid us in being able to move forward in business, being able to buy up properties in one area and establish, like Chinatown and others have established. There are little Italy's, there are Chinatowns, there's the other markets and other groups that have established, other groups that have established community growth and development for their particular communities. Think about it. Just think about it. So stop sitting in front of me telling me, singing that same old song. Well, brother, you know, you got to vote because people die for that right. Well, people put their lives on the line to go into all white schools. People put their lives on the line to do things that others are permitted to do, and they die as a result of it. So see, in the 60s, in the 50s, it was real strong. It was real strong. The dialogue was real strong. We were persistent in our pursuit of justice, of equality. We were consistent in that. We were persistent. We were relentless. And now we've been duped into believing that because there are certain liberties that we've been afforded, that we've arrived. That we've formed our own little circles now. So the problem is not others. The problem is us. The problem is us. Because we've convinced ourselves that we've arrived. Therefore, we can become complacent, which we have been. Therefore, we can be comfortable, which we have been. But how comfortable and complacent can you be when you turn on the evening news, when you turn on CNN, when you look at the front page of the daily newspapers, and you look and you see a black man laying face down on the ground in a pool of blood because he's been shot down by either some racist thinking individual, because it's not just law enforcement, or by some twisted thinking black man who believes it's okay to continue to kill his own. How comfortable and complacent can you be in your current position, knowing that there has to be changes? There has to be changes. This is not a matter of gun laws. This is a matter of laws, period. Because they don't apply to us. They don't apply to us. But there's no pressing legislation. There's no pressing outrage by our own black politicians to change that. If it is, it must be being done in secret, because I certainly have not seen anything on the news about it. I haven't seen anything. So when you start looking at politics and you keep talking about voting, your right to vote. Your right, if you don't, exercise your rights, then you lose them. So what about other rights? that we fought for, the right to education. You can explain to me how we have, what, 37, 40 schools closed? We are still short $82 million in order to keep our schools running adequately. I don't see any protests happening in Harrisburg. I see one person, the mayor. Where's everybody else standing behind him? Where's everybody else standing in line with him? Where's everybody else losing sleep? Sitting on the steps out there at the White House. Where? I'm sorry, did I miss that one? Did it happen so quickly that it's just kind of like it was an event and it was gone? So what are you arguing about? These are facts, man. You want to make an argument? These are facts. You want to justify? These are facts. They're facts. So you can sit here and make all kind of disagreeing comments you want. These are the facts.